we hit it off really well.
Oh
In
man.
good
Well, we
friends ever
hopped back
since.
in, so you know what, you plug that thing in. We're hopping back in, just so you know,
All
technically
right.
now. But yeah, my internet connection. I'd say like right now, internet connections in general just suffering. Like I can't tell how many times it's like something goes to like a lower bandwidth, a lower speed. But it is what it is. But yeah, like you like Chris
This is not
Naimi.
working.
What's that? I can hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear me.
I gotta make sure it's not a just friend situation. Hold on one second. I like how they do all this. I'm like, oh gosh, Facebook make it easier when it comes to chats. I don't need things to be just friends. It's like, oh, you're because it is better when you're able to see. Okay. Yep, I see a few you in
Just,
here.
can you still
Hopefully,
hear me?
yeah, I can still hear you just fine. So what I'm doing
Oh,
is
good.
I'm setting up like I have overlay. So with the plugins and whatnot, like Facebook just has some updates. So hopefully I don't have to like log back in to do this. Facebook's always changing things, and I get it. Like we're just in an interesting time right now. So there has been a lot of things recently they've been changing, and I don't blame them at all. But now I just got to change a few of those preferences to make sure that I don't have to worry about anything
I
yet.
see there's a very serious delay, huh?
There is a slight delay, yes, which I understand why they do that. What I'm trying to do, though, is just make sure from the standpoint that to me, it's important to see the comments because then that's like how I can actually see them live here. And so when they type it in, there won't be as big of a delay that direction. But you know how it goes, and I don't want to have to turn around and like open up multiple streams to be able to do it. But it's kind of where we are. It is what it is. But
I
anyways,
hear
I
you.
digress. So,
Oh, look, it's
anyways.
Mr. Alan Cracked and Abigail. Look at that.
Yeah, it's nice when people get to pop in for a bit.
Yeah, totally. We had that little video conference last Friday, and we should have done it again yesterday. Totally. And
Oh, there's no doubt.
it was a long ass week this week.
How can we hack into this and talk over you? Too funny, Alan. That could you imagine?
You can't, Alan.
Oh,
Sorry, buddy.
that could go sideways so quickly. Possibly for the best. I wouldn't mind something going a little sideways here and there, but no. So wait, you had like an earthquake or whatnot the other day, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah, no, this was yesterday. So it was about 5 or 6 o'clock, and we're just sitting there watching TV, and it was a big bump. It's like somebody lifted the house up, and it went thump, and it actually scared the shit out of me. I mean, and it just lasted for literally a second and a half, 2 seconds. But it was like it felt like a big one. But the whole house kind of shook, and my wife said that the walls creaked, which was a bit scary. I didn't hear that, but I know, right?
Yeah, that's a
But
poltergeist situation.
yeah, but it was pretty scary, and it was. I immediately went on their USGS website, and um, it was about less than 100 miles from us was the epicenter. One of my friends who's an FSM, Tony Gentry, you might know him. He lives
Yeah.
out in he lives out in Palm Desert, which is maybe like less than 50 miles away from the epicenters. And he said that like there was a bunch of aftershocks and stuff. But yeah, no, it's like after everything that's gone on, like the last fucking thing that we need is an earthquake, and what else can possibly go wrong? It
Oh,
sucks.
oh man, 100%. Like that's definitely the last thing you need is an earthquake. Honestly, at this point, I mean, we just got 101 things going on. I mean, yesterday, for me personally, we won't go into the details. Seeing we're together for obvious reasons there, but it's just a shitty day, and I was trying to keep a very positive outlook into the weekend, this sort of thing. And look, I mean, with somebody who travels a bit, you understand this. It's nice to be able to be home and spend some time with the family. But the last thing we need is just anything on top of everything that's going on. I would say yesterday after having like just some conversations with people I haven't even talked to in a bit. Some personal friends from work, some just I've known outside of work, and just getting caught up with people in general. Like I've been using House Party a bit. And
Hmm.
I don't think there's one person that I've talked to in the past 24 hours who hasn't been affected by everything that's just going on right now. And so it may be semi-depressing, and it's just one of those where it's like, look, where can you find some of this silver lining? You know what I mean? It's just there's so much going on. Anyway.
I don't know if there is a silver lining. There are very, very few, you know. But you're right. It's kind of motivating us to do different things, and I've done video conferencing with some of my cousins back in England, which I've never done before, which is kind of nice to see them. But at the same time, you know, the circumstances are pretty bloody awful. Um, We've got lots of food in the house, which was nice. You know, one of my favorite things to do, Terrence, is grocery shopping. I know, right?
Your
It
top, hold on, like your
sounds like
top three
completely
favorite
ridiculous.
activities: grocery
But
shopping.
yeah, favorite activity,
Hold on. I just want to
grocery
set this up
shopping.
right now. I want to set this up right now. I want you guys to imagine, right? Like Jonathan, like imagine Jonathan over here, very attractive guy, very nice British accent, right? Goes on like a dating profile. He's like, you know, one of my favorite things to do is walk on these beach here and walk on these nice beaches in California and grocery shop, right? Like long walks down aisle 3. I'm just imagining it right now. But anyways, that's hilarious.
Long walks down the
Oh.
produce aisle, you know,
Oh.
extended times waiting in line on my favorite cashier, using Samsung Pay as much as humanly possible. You know?
Oh, I know, man. Like I was just talking to this random lady about this. It's been a couple weeks now, but she was like all crazy with the pad, right, and all the sanitizer. And she had it was either S8 or S9. I asked her specifically. She said it was S9. I was like, yeah. I was like, so, you know, just out of curiosity, not to sound like a Q-tor. I just work in the industry. Like I didn't want to say like exactly my occupation, but I'm like, hey, so like, is there a particular reason why, right? Like you would want to pay with your phone? And she's just like, oh, you know, like I just don't trust putting all of my information in this phone. And mind you, she's like, I would say she's younger than me for sure. And I was like, okay, so let me get this right. Again, not to be accusatory, so I want to be clear here, but you would rather like use your physical card, something could be compromised, versus use your phone, which by the way, like you have to have a passcode, everything else to do it. So it's not someone can just steal it and just go on a purchasing spree where clearly your credit card where you didn't enter a PIN, you could. And so like
Right.
and she told me straight out, she's like, look, I just don't know much about it and that concerns me. So like that was really the issue was there's like this lack of knowledge of how to do it and why you should trust it. And like we went through this already, right? Like you and I are old enough to know like when people were deathly afraid of using debit cards and credit cards and cash was
Mhm.
still king and nobody wanted to stop using cash. So maybe this is just, you know, again, that new age version of it. Ugh, it's just so
But
strange.
it's funny though how relevant it is. You know, people are being told, hey, you know, use mobile payments because you don't have to touch so many different things in the store. You know, you can just type in your PIN or whatever it is, and then you're pretty much done. And you know, when you use cash, you know, you could have like a bill that could have swapped hands like half a dozen times during the day. So cash is disgusting, really, when it comes to
Oh,
germs.
come
So the
on.
mobile
Yeah.
payments are like a totally king now. I don't remember the last time I used cash. It's been so long.
I remember the last time I used
I think
cash,
my mom sent me
2012.
$50 for my birthday or $100 for my birthday, and I'm like, wow, what's this? Like this paper money? It seemed like something kind of like out of a movie or something. So I hadn't used cash for so long, but no, I mean it's now it's so relevant. But yeah, no, my visits to the grocery store. So you know, my number one place to go is Aldi.
Aldi's
Dude,
awesome.
it's just like. Dude, it's the one-stop shop, man. I have like so much favorite shit there. But yeah, go there maybe a couple times a week, and they are so freaking well stocked. The only thing they don't have is toilet paper. But you
Surprise,
know,
surprise,
what are
everybody.
you gonna do?
I think like to me, it's so funny. Abigail, I'm gonna write you a check. Yeah, it's like it's just too funny to me. Look, I used to do a cash obviously heavily in 2012. I won't necessarily talk about that prior job, but nonetheless, like cash gets sweaty, nasty, goes in crazy places. You know, people have done all sorts of crazy things with cash. Let's just be honest. Like cash is absolutely disgusting. And even now during this
Those
time,
dollar bills. Think where those
That's
dollar
right.
bills
Those
going to
dollar
be,
bills,
baby.
we know where
Okay.
they've been, unless it's brand new printed money, and even then, it's going through the same ATM machines where things are being dispensed that the rest of the cash has gone through. Look, it's
That's
disgusting,
not what I'm
people.
referring to.
I know what
That's
you're referring to. Trust me, I
okay.
know what you're referring to. Do you see my big
Got like
eyes? I
you
know
got
what you're referring to.
five
Let me
strip
stare
clubs
into
in
the.
town.
Let me
All
stare
those
into the
$1
camera.
bills.
I absolutely know. I absolutely know. And so, Alan, oh my God, I have a butler deliver my groceries. Look, I think that's the interesting thing, right? Like, not to go on a tangent here for a second, but I'm gonna go just a tad bit. Look, okay, so here in our industry, right, we've made it so easy. We say, okay, look here, ladies and gentlemen, we want to give you from the comforts of your home. People love to brag about watching Game of Thrones. Like, oh, I sat on the couch all weekend and I watched like 3 seasons back to back, and I didn't even leave the couch, and I ordered pizza from the app Pizza Hut, that's UKT, right? Like, all this, all the work that we've done to literally have everything come to you, right? Instacart, so on and so forth. And the moment anybody's told that they have to sit at home for a little bit for some quarantine time, people lose their shit, right? And I
That's no
find the
shit.
irony in that. I find the irony. And look, and let's be clear here, like our grandparents, they were asked to go to war. They were asked to draft, and people signed up and people went to it. We're not asked to go to war. We're asked to sit on a freaking couch for like 2 weeks, right? So when I hear people like, I just can't, I'm like, oh, STFU. Like, just get it together. I get it where it's a pain point. Don't get me wrong. I understand it's nice weather out. We want to go do things. I get it. But can you just get it together for 2 weeks? Can you just get it together? That's all I'm saying.
I know, no shit. No shit. But you know what? I mean, we've been doing this already for what, a good 3 weeks now. At
Oh,
least in California we have.
well, yeah.
And we got a long way to go. But no, you're right. People need to just chill the fuck out. They've got so much they could do at home, and it's based on being told, hey,
Yeah,
you
that's,
can't do
that's what
this.
it is.
You can't
Well,
go out.
and look, and it's very
But
clear to me. It's individualism versus collectivism, right? Like, I get it. In the States, we have a lot of freedoms here. We don't want to give that up, and I totally understand it. But at the same time, at the flip side of the coin, like, I was reading so many articles where people are like, oh, but you just got to be more responsible, more self-responsibility. And I'm like, yeah, get the fuck out of here with that nonsense. Like, that's not going to happen here. Because, like, if I'm, let's say, a healthy person, right, which borderline young, come on, I'm 37, my man. I'm approaching a little bit. I'm
just
getting to the older stuff.
borderline.
Yeah. And so I can't consider myself, like, the youngie anymore. But wait a minute. So if I can go out and literally be contagious without knowing that I'm contagious, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, that's not being responsible. Like, being responsible is saying, hey, like, this shit sucks, but adulting here, I'm going to stay in and do what needs to be done. And I'm going to minimize any risk of going out so that we can just shut this shit down and move on. Like, nobody wants to sit at home. Nobody wants to do it. I get it. But for these assholes, for lack of a better term, and I know I'm just, like, going on a tangent here, that feel that they have to go out and it's their God-given American right, I'm like, yeah, but like, that's nice, but can you just bring it in together for a moment? Like, just get
Yeah,
it
no
together.
shit.
Okay, I'm done with my
Yeah.
rant, but I had to rant for a little bit. I can't deal with these type of people. I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, it's totally true though. You know, what are you going to do? And to be fair, the government are trying to do this in a way that is not going to make anyone panic. They're trying to do things as
Yeah.
slowly and surely as possible, and they're trying to get everyone to take responsibility, because if we didn't do what we're doing right now, you're talking martial law, like really serious shit. As soon as we get the military involved, because I don't know if you've noticed, I'm not sure what it's like in Atlanta, but the cops are not on the roads. You don't see any cops anywhere.
Oh no,
They're
I'm gonna
trying
totally
to
out
keep
myself
away
here.
from everyone.
Yeah, I don't
Right?
blame him. Look, I had a good. Joe Willis gonna give me shit for this one. Like, I was out on the road and like I had this open highway, on a track, and I was just able to just like open up that throttle and just haul ass down the interstate. There was nobody. Like, there was nobody. Trees. That was it. There was literally just no human beings on the road. It was just crazy to me, but. And to the point of Atlanta, just kind of give you like a little bit of insight here. We're just really divided. Like, we had a mayor that didn't do such a good job. Kemp tried to put things on lockdown. And from what I'm seeing here, like, a lot of people are just, we'll do it quasi, right? Like, it's like, okay, we want to respect it a little, but we don't want to give up everything. So I still have neighbors that have parties from time to time, which, I mean, I haven't seen in like over a week, but I thought that was interesting. And, a lot of people not practicing it whatsoever. And it's interesting, man. Like I'm trying not to be judgmental because I understand to a degree where people are coming from, but also I don't think that it helps us that we don't see the real destruction, the true between the death tolls and the job losses. Like it's just not really apparent yet. It's not like I drove up to a hospital and saw how serious it is, or it's not like I drove up to the unemployment office and you would physically see people in lines. Like that's not the case. So I think it's out of sight, out of mind situation. But
Yeah, no, totally.
here
It
we
is.
go.
And it's going to get so much worse. That's the problem. But we don't want to hear that.
No, nobody
We
wants to hear it.
want to hear optimism. That's what everyone needs right now. So I'm not going to be pessimistic about it. So the way it looks, yeah, you know what? The way it looks is that at least in California, and in Washington State, that the social distancing is working, and they don't have anywhere near the same amount of infections as they do elsewhere, like the hot spots, which are the high density areas like New York City and Detroit, et cetera, et cetera. So it's working here, but they still don't think that it'll hit a peak until probably at least the beginning of May, maybe even mid-May. But we should be out of. I know, but we'll be out of this. In early summer, at some point, it's going to happen. Even in like Italy and Spain, which is like the two pretty much worst affected areas of Europe, they're starting to peak now, and they're starting to actually come down the numbers. So, and they were saying this evening while we was watching the freaking Trump's press conference, of course, and. He was saying that, or at least the doctor dude was saying that the numbers are now coming down in Europe, or at least in those two hotspots, and we're about 12 days behind Italy and Spain. 12 days. So, we should see in 2 weeks' time the numbers should start coming down. But we just got to get through that, and it's gonna be rough, man.
Oh,
And
there's no doubt.
the economic. Let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about that.
Well, yeah, we
Let's
don't have to
not
go too. We don't have to go too far with it. I
Let's
mean,
not.
some of it just unfortunately. I mean, look, this is just a reality. I don't think there's an escape from it. But what I
No.
find, yeah, it's just like it's one of those where. You want to be positive, but at the same time, you need to have a little bit of a sobering reality here, because I think one thing we tend to do very well is, in a sense, kind of fool ourselves, like pretend it's not so serious. And that is a slight repercussion of exactly why we're at now, right? You look at these spring breakers. Oh, it's not that serious. They go on spring break and then they get it, and now they show signs of, a little bit of regret and some reluctance here. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, no shit, right? And so it takes some people moments to catch on. And it doesn't get real until someone like it happens to them, and then all of a sudden it really gets real. And so and just to go from a comment standpoint, I think Abigail brings up something interesting. She says, if plasma of and just like a topic, right? So if plasma of recovered people helps sick people, should healthy people go and intentionally get it, recover, and donate plasma? And so I'll tackle this one first. I don't think the word intentional would be maybe the best way to go about it, right? Like, I would think if you're already somebody who just happened to fall through and you got tested and you happen to have it, it should be an option, and hopefully you'll do, just your due diligence as just a very humane person and donate some plasma in that regard. I understand the situation of the herd immunity, and ultimately things may eventually go that route, but for that to occur, you have to accept the consequences, and the consequences of anything through herd immunity would be, underlining deaths, right? Like that always happens during a herd immunity. So the question is, and I know that's like a very broad topic. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to this one. You can broaden and expand it a bit. But if we're going to do any sort of herd mentality, we have to understand that we literally will be sacrificing those with weaker immune systems or people who would be compromised for it. And I would say, to me, it's just not worth it. Like, I'm not going to put my grandmother, my mom or my parents or anybody in jeopardy for something. Like, in other words, my conscience just can't handle it. So interesting thought process, though. And then maybe you can chime in also, Alan there, they have similar populations and less struggles between regions to shut everything down, which makes me think, and I want to pause for a second, right? Like, maybe a lesson that can be learned here, other than maybe we should take these things more seriously. I mean, the fact that we've lost more human lives on the planet through pathogens and viruses than we have even through human warfare, even through religion, I think is to say something. And to know that a pandemic was going to always be a particular issue, maybe that's where some of the budget to start going. So we should possibly take this sort of thing more seriously.
We definitely need to change so many different things. I mean, every issue has been affected by this, and nothing seems to work right out of the box. So, this struggle between regions, and I mean, everything is now pretty much shut down, and I see like different regions opening up before others. So I think, potentially like California is going to open up faster than, East Coast, especially, obviously New York City. But everything isn't going to be able to open up all at the same time. I don't know. When it comes to like taking people's plasma under martial law, could they force it? No, of course not. This is America, right?
Exactly. And I think like people,
they ain't going. You're going to take my blood, motherfucker.
And I think people we go to the extremes with things. Like I think it's a fair question, but like that's where people go, right? Like if we're being honest with ourselves, the moment we talk about like doing anything that takes a real coordinated effort, we always go the nuclear route, right? So like for instance, just my personal opinion, I look at it like, okay, leadership should just lock all this stuff down. Like don't make it a state situation. Like you can't take a worldwide problem and make it a state issue. You know what I mean? Like you got to say, wait a minute, this is a bigger problem. We're called United States for a reason. Some things we unite on, like education. We unite on the fact that my Georgia driver's license lets me drive between states. I can take my Georgia license plate and go between states, and my ID, with except for you in St. Louis, Joe Willis, because you guys can't seem to get legitimate, but that's neither here nor there, right? Like we can take these things and go between states. So I think we just have to have some sort of agreement. Hey, look, we're in a crisis. We have to come together here, and we're going to buckle down in this particular situation. And so we're going to collectively decide that we're going to close everything down for a period of time, preferably 2 to 3 weeks, right? And just get this thing done. And to pretend that we can do it state by state is going to, eliminate the issue, I just think it's just poor thinking. And the reason why for that is because if for any reason, let's say California does everything right, but all the neighboring states don't, and you open things up, then infected people come back in, and you're going through the process again, right?
What I'm saying when I say open things up, I don't mean open up travel. I mean open up, our cities, right? To one another. So inside the state of California, or it'll probably be city by city, or maybe even county by county. So, there's no way that, we can, start travel between states, or even, goodness knows when international travel will start again. I mean, Jesus, it could be 6 months, could be even longer than that.
I know.
This is like, I'm just curious to know what it's like in Atlanta right now. I mean, does it look like something like out of The Walking Dead, or what?
Yeah, for us in Atlanta, it depends on where it is. You'll still see quite a bit of cars on the street. You'll see Chick-fil-A, like drive-thrus, businesses are open, and from that standpoint, which, I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like, I got to be honest, like, I own it. Like, I participate in that sort of thing. I love to order to go because I feel like, to a degree, I'm supporting some local businesses. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to go inside. I don't want to interact with a whole bunch of people, because I think there's a very fine line, right? When you consider essentials, like, for me to be able to order something, go through drive-through and pick it up, and go about my way, it's not necessarily a bad thing or a bad way to have a compromise. What I do find interesting is, for instance, Gwinnett County shut down, but ours isn't. So you'll see people still trying to go to parks. Lake Lanier was packed here recently, and I'm like, what are you idiots doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's just maybe to me, it's just a disregard for some sort of like social alliance, right? Like, we're going to unite and do this. And for people to say, I'm just going to do my own thing, everyone else be damned. And it makes me think, and here's like a thought exercise, right? Like, it really makes me wonder if a democracy can truly work when it comes to something like a pandemic. I think you can make the argument that, with business and just, versus other different countries type of ruling, democracies are great. But I think if you have a crisis where health is the utmost issue, it makes me question if democracies where people can't behave like when times are tough and in a crisis and collectively come together, again, individualism versus collectivism, if we can't come together, that it makes me wonder, can a democracy survive long term? So it's a really interesting, just to me, thought experiment. And
Yeah.
Alan,
Well,
Alan, look, it just takes one person, and it
it's
does.
one it's one big mess, isn't it?
Yeah, it is one big mess, and it's just I think it and I don't want to go to another question just yet. I want to hold this back a little bit, but it makes you stop and ponder, right? It makes you stop and just think for a second. Like, it's just interesting the state of events that have taken place to get us to this point, and I'm actually pretty shocked that nothing's blown up sooner. I mean, we had a few close scares, right, with like SARS and some other things, and it never really like took a footing. And like things went south, like things happened, but it never quite caught on like this one. And now, like, a dicey question, I'm going to ask it anyway, right? It's like, are we overblowing this a little bit, right? We know it's serious, 100% serious, right? But then I can see sometimes people's arguments that, maybe we are taking some things a little bit too far. But that's where things get dicey, right? Like, do you overreact to be safe and to make sure that things get quashed the first time? Or do you try to have some sort of median here, but then you run the risk of not isolating this thing the way that you would want it to, and then you be in a situation where something that only would take 2 or 3 weeks is now taking 2 or 3 months because you just didn't take the hard route.
It's just, as Abigail is pointing out, this is really to protect first responders and utility workers and the hospital system, because the hospitals are absolutely way beyond capacity. So this is what it's all about. Remember only about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, when we were talking about this, and we were like, hey, this is very serious. And then you had your doubters who are like, oh, it's no more serious than a regular flu. And then you point out, well, actually, the numbers say that it's like 20 times more communicable than the regular flu, and then the death rate. And the doubters are still doubting. And then 2 weeks later, everyone's having to eat like a big fucking slice of humble pie, right? And we're in this situation now, and everyone's all like frightened. Reality fucking bites, right? Reality bites. But this is going to take time. It clearly. But the burden on the system. Who's this, Jesse? That's our biggest problem. We have half and trickled it.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily. I don't think we half-assed it at all. I really don't. I think we were pretty. We tried to be as realistic as possible. And if 6 weeks ago we'd have locked everything down, I think America would have gone absolutely bananas. That you can't, in a situation like this. There was no right or wrong. There really wasn't. Hindsight is completely useless, isn't it? And the media, yeah. Well, it is in the current situation. It's not going to help us. It might help us the next time this happens, if it ever happens again. But right now,
it will. Let's be clear. Yeah, it will.
It doesn't help us at all right now. And the way the media paint everything, then they paint everything. They don't report what's happening now. They focus on hindsight, what we did, and what we could have done better, right? And what the outcome would have been had we done something differently 2 weeks ago. They're not actually helping the public, helping the population. They should be reporting what's happening now. What can you do to make life better for yourself and better for everyone else, and how are we going to get out of this, rather than all of this rhetorical bullshit. And I'm going to start going towards politics again, which I don't want, right? Yeah, it helps us learn. It does help us learn, but right here, right now, it's not helping. Right now, everyone needs a big dose of optimism. There's officially there's like 4 or 5 million people unemployed, but it's going to be
and growing.
Okay, it's going to be triple that inside of 2 weeks, and it's going to just be way out of control. And when it comes to people's rent and people's mortgages, just from just people like you and I, if we don't have an income, and then we can't pay our rent, what's going to happen? You can't pay your mortgage. What's going to happen? When you talk about the broader scheme of things, when it comes to commercial property, right? Think about every mall in America. Now, the mall rents are so incredibly high. Everyone's closed right now. And no one's paying any rent because the stores are closed, the malls are closed. You do that for 3 months, well, guess what? The owners of the malls, they can't pay either. So you've got another big problem because all of these companies, whether it's Macy's or Joe Schmo shoe store that has 100 outlets or whatever it might be, all the malls in America, unless they get bailed out by the Fed or whoever, it's all finished. It's all finished. It really is. It's all finished. Hey, can I actually ask you something? So I heard, so a friend of mine told me that the stimulus package, which is like $1,200 per person, or a married couple is going to be $2,400 plus $500 per child. Apparently, this is what I'm told, but they haven't focused on it at all in the media. Apparently, it's a loan against next year's tax return, against your tax refund, because the average tax refund is something like $2,900. So you're actually borrowing from that tax refund. That's why it's not a burden on the Fed, because it's money that they figure that they're going to have.
I haven't heard that one, but hold on, let me backtrack for a little bit, because there's so much to unpack there. You touched on so many interesting things.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, this is what I love about it. I agree with Jesse on this one, and I'll give you a little bit of pushback here. Look, the half-ass thing, I just think is what we have to own from the fact that, and Alan even pointed out here, look, where we went wrong is that we didn't take this thing seriously from the beginning. We had a lot of leadership there saying, like, this thing is going to disappear, right? It's like, it's not really that serious, and I get the optimism, and we don't want to overblow things, but at the same time, I think you got to give a little bit more faith in people to say, if you give them a bit of the honesty and the truth here, and you go ahead and under-promise and over-deliver in this particular situation, then you're gonna start building a little bit of credibility. So the example is, if we would have told people, hey, look, like, this particular virus can be serious. It is not as of today, but this is a situation. Let's kind of catch you in the loop of what's happening around the world, XYZ. This is where we're at, 15 people affected, whatever, but we're going to take preemptive measures. When things do go south, you have, in a sense, a belief that your leadership has things under control. But when you do say that things aren't as serious as it is, it's not that big of a deal, then you pretend that you're going to open up a country by a specific date, and you keep backtracking and things keep getting out further and further, then anything that you do say loses its credibility, and people are going to go to the worst, which is going to cause panic. So the only thing that I would say from that standpoint is, while again I can understand the slow response to it and wanting to be very careful and not tee people off and go the nuclear route and just overboard and go over extreme with it, I think we could have taken it a little bit more seriously and put a little bit more actions in plan and have credibility. For instance, CDC, maybe people that are better at it. Like, again, no hate towards people that are big Trump fans, but look, he's not the best person to speak on this. Get Pence out in front of it.
He is probably terrible. The worst. He's the worst person. Speaker. Here's the problem, though, is that he's the least eloquent speaker that we've ever had in the White House, but. And I'm not a Trump supporter. Let me just say that. I'm not a Trump supporter. Most of what he says, it's not actually what he says. It's purely how he says it. Because if you read half of what he says, you'd probably agree with it, most of it. Well, maybe. But it's not what he says, it's how he says it.
Well, it's his optimism. He wants to be optimistic, right? Let me give him this one. He wants to be optimistic. He doesn't like to deliver bad news. He's never liked to deliver bad news. It's something you see. He always focuses on things like, top ratings, right? We're doing the best job. He's always trying to give this sense of positivity. And I want to kind of take my just disdain for him, because I think he's terrible, out of it and try to understand from his point of view where he wants to keep things positive. And while I can appreciate it, the cold fact is it doesn't do anybody any favors, right? It's like my doctor trying to give me false hope.
But it does.
Right? You know what I'm saying? I don't think it does.
That's where I disagree. I think it does, because you've got to look at the most of the population of America. They're going to panic, right? And they need to be looking at somebody who is being optimistic, even though it's bullshit, which it is. But I totally understand where he's coming from. He wasn't trying to overblow things. He wasn't trying to make this out to be something that, even if it's true, which it is, that this is something that is, the most challenging event that we've had since World War II. It is, but for him to be downcast about it and to be 100% pessimistic, which is the reality, unfortunately, it wouldn't be the responsible thing. But he's gone the other direction. He's been entirely super optimistic. Oh yeah, we're going to get everything going by
that's
Easter.
Not responsible, though.
Of
right?
course,
like, that's not responsible.
Well, of course, we're not going to get anything going by Easter. But I totally get it. Whereas I don't agree with what he's saying, I totally understand what he's getting at.
Oh, I think most people can agree with that. Like, I see what you're saying from that standpoint, right? Like, that I can appreciate. My problem is I don't think we have a really good pulse on how the American people behave. Personally, I'd rather have a strong leader to say, hey, we're going to shoot to you straight. But also, not only can I trust what you say because you are going to shoot to me straight, but I also trust that you're going to that you're competent and you're going to come up with a plan, right? And like, some things may go sideways, but you're competent. You're going to have a plan, and when you don't, like, you're going to get the right people in play and your ego set aside. Like, that's the issue personally I take with it. I just think we can do a better job. And so here's a couple comments.
It's funny though, isn't it? It's been almost 4 years. It's been, 3.5 years of this guy, and we still haven't got used to his way of delivering information. We can't get used to it. Everything he says, it's like, what the hell? It's like it's come way out of left field. We can't get used to it because he sounds like a complete nutcase.
And by the way, like, Jesse and Alan both have some good points. Let me read them to you just in case here. But Jesse mentioned, on the economic side, we should have looked at what El Salvador did and delayed all significant payments, rent, mortgage, utilities, credit cards, etc. for 90 days. Payback over 2 years with no interest, no damage to credit standing. If your landlord doesn't have to pay a mortgage, they won't have to evict renters, etc. Which is really interesting. I know a good friend of mine, Gina, I won't mention her last name, but I guess you guys can put that together. Like, highly intelligent. She was saying something very similar. And then Alan, but J-Dub, he said that he didn't want to let the people off the boat because he didn't like the numbers of infections where they were. I know that was a pretty shitty thing to say. But anyways, any thoughts on Jesse or Alan's
agree.
comment?
Totally agree. I don't know how have they handled Georgia.
Georgia, to be determined. So, like, I don't want to put out, like, my personal business, but, like, somebody very close to me had to have a test here recently, and look, it took what, I think 11 days to get this thing back, right? I mean, like, the testing has been one of the biggest issues for me personally, right? Like, I look at it from the standpoint of, I think we could do a better, because, like, you can't manage what you can't measure. Like, I'm a big firm believer in that, right? Like, tests in general, when you can measure it, you can better manage it because like, you start to find out things like different symptoms, who's being affected, who dies, right? Like, you start to get data that's really useful here. And I think if we would have gotten off on the right foot with that in particular, I think we'd be in a better place. Again, missteps are going to happen. Nobody necessarily had to deal with this quite like we have during this era. So I do want to give a little bit of just, like, understanding and leniency there. I don't want to be necessarily too harsh, but I also find it very difficult when I don't see people taking accountability and responsibility seriously, right? Like, if this were my job, and this is just me, like, if something was messed up, absolutely. Yes, you're right, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so asked me the question. This is what we didn't do 100%, but this is now what we're doing, what we learned from it. And I think there's some strength into that, and we can't behave as if that's a sign of weakness. And maybe last here, and then I'll turn over to you, Jonathan. So Cannon Hill, they let people on cruise ships where they were confirmed cases to fly home commercial from Atlanta airport. Oh! Oh man, it's just been interesting. But, like, Atlanta, there's only so much I've seen because I haven't been to the city now in a few weeks. The last time I went to the office was maybe a couple weeks ago, and I can tell you when I went there, it was a ghost town. And there's only 3 employees at our local office, and they're like, hey, just so you know, like, none of us are coming back. Like, we're not coming back indefinitely. We'll let you know. We'll have, like, a little chat open, but we're closing this office. Nobody's coming back. And there was nothing open with the exception of, like, drive-through Chick-fil-A, that sort of thing. But just give you, like, some fun facts here. I tried to work, like, when this first was starting to go down. I was like, oh, you know what I'll do? Like, I won't go in a coffee shop. I'll go into, like, a Hilton property where I have, like, dive-in, and I'll find, like, a secluded area and get some work remotely. Nope. You have to be a guest. If you're not a guest, shut down. Like, everybody started, if you're not like, in a hotels, if you're not a patron, shut off to you, and B, everything else like restaurants and whatnot, like you don't go in it. We did have a few spots here that were recently kind of forced to not be open, but people took it to the extreme. It's been inconsistent. Maybe that's the best word.
It's very inconsistent. But what do you do? Like Canon, they let people on cruise ships where there were confirmed cases to fly home commercial from Atlanta airport, and they've done that all over the country.
Bad move.
But what do you do? I mean, how many of those cruise ships were out off the coast of Miami, and they weren't letting them in? I think there was at least 2 or 3 in the last couple of days, and they finally let them disembark. But it's crazy times, and it's at some point you've got to let these people go home. Those poor folks on those cruise ships, absolutely just that's terrifying. Being stuck there in a little room.
Oh God, a little room. Yes, a little room,
Jesus.
Little shower, a little toilet, a little everything.
Fuck. Well, hopefully they got TP.
I know, right? Hopefully they had toilet paper, which is on land very scarce. Look, I don't know. To me, cruise ships, I'm so over cruise ships. I never liked them. I've only been on it once, and while I had a great time, I just think cruise ships are absolutely disgusting. I came back from a cruise, again, only been on one. I don't know, Eric may be on this, and this is so funny. Eric Denault, my boy over here, who usually I'm always at odds with during these type of conversations.
Eric?
I know, where is Eric, right? Is he here? What's that? Eric, are you here? An interesting thing is he had to bring me a big jug of water, and I ate an apple within a 24-hour time frame before I just upchucked it. And look, I got sick as a dog, coming back, and I definitely got food poisoning. I loathe cruise ships. I'm with Jesse on this one. Floating disease ships, I will not go back on one of these things. I'm done. Cruise ships, that's a business that can totally die out, and I'd be fine with it. I just think it's disgusting.
They're gross. Yeah. Actually, I want to comment on something that Jesse. It's talking about the economic side. We should be looking at what El Salvador has done. I mean, that aside, but a lot of countries have done this. They've delayed all significant payments, so rent, mortgages, etc., for 90 days. And what we really should be doing? The government should be pressing the pause button, because they can. It's just a lot of work for everyone, but they need to be pressing the pause button on the economy. Everything about it. Whether it's the stock market, the Fed, everything, the numbers need to be paused because so much damage is being done. They shouldn't be allowing people to go backwards on any kind of payments, whether it's rent or mortgages. They're telling small businesses to get loans. What good is that going to do? Unless it's free money, it's not. All it's going to do is delay the inevitable. So. Kudos to you, Jesse, for saying that. And it's going to come up. It's definitely going to come up, and it's something that they've done in Italy, El Salvador, as you said, and a whole bunch of other countries. I don't know why they can't just do it here, because it's something that's necessary. So
what? This brings up such an interesting point, right? Again, a bit of optimism, but a little bit with a touch of shade here. I think it's so interesting to me, right? Think about everything we've been talking about recently. In no recent times have I heard the word anti-Semitic, right? Socialism, all that crazy talk has seemed to disappear in the time of crisis, right? And so something that's interesting to me is the moment some shit hits the fan, you know what? People are cool with money from the government, right? When your livelihood and your job is on the line, some shit changes really quickly. So I just find the observation here, and not to minimalize it, but again, I just think there's a lesson to be learned here from a social standpoint. Look, if we're true capitalists, then guess what? Let businesses die. That's how capitalism works. You don't save anybody. You survival of the fittest. But we have always been a quasi type of country. We've always been. And I think now is the time to really take a moment to pause and reflect here, because I like the idea of look, some businesses just need some cash from the government, preferably in a loan, right? Because we don't want to give them free money. And not only that, but you can pay back the American people, the shareholders. But look, sometimes you do need aid. Sometimes you do need help to make it through. And it's better for everybody in the economy. So I think everybody kind of needs to take a pause here and realize as much as we love to believe that we're so independent and we're so self-made, no, we have to work with one another. We need one another to continue to keep things afloat. And so I just find this to be a very interesting moment to pause here and say, maybe we do need to support one another through some tough times and stop being a bunch of narcissistic assholes when it comes to a time that, oh, I'm doing good. Oh no, you have a troublesome time? Well, you pick up your weight and you go get a job. Yeah, when times are hard and shit hits the fan, you take a different perspective. So I just think now's the time for us to take a little slice of that humble pie, Jonathan, and think this through. So I know, I just find
Humble
this to be
quiche.
so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting.
There's going to be some amazing opportunities with this because let's face it, our dependence on China
Mm-hmm.
is it's ridiculous. And honestly, the whole world is so dependent on Chinese goods. This is something that absolutely needs to change. And I think that, a company like Amazon could do so much good. I mean, they're such a rich country, company. A country. Amazon could be a country, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But they're such a rich company. They have so much money that they're wasting it on, putting things into space, or at least trying to. But they have like such a ridiculous amount of money. They have the power to bring so much manufacturing back to the United States and to Canada and to Mexico and to this continent and South America as well, and it would do so much good for this, entire continent, especially, a country like Mexico. Bring the jobs back here, create, gosh darn, millions of jobs. It makes sense from so many different perspectives, even from an environmental perspective, it makes sense. So, we're not shipping, all of these flow of products constantly back and forth, from China. But, our dependence on Chinese goods, surely it's going to change because it makes sense. Everyone's reliance on Chinese goods. It's something that has come to a head now, and we now realize, if the supply chain gets cut off, everyone's in big trouble. I mean, did you know that crash carts in these hospitals, I think each crash cart has something like 250 drugs, and every drug on that cart is a generic, meaning none of them are manufactured in the US. They all come from China, which is ridiculous. So now they're having problems sourcing drugs at hospitals. I mean, we have a lot of problems, but that really shouldn't be one of them. But yeah, bottom line is we need to be. Amazon is the devil.
Look, I like Amazon to a degree. Hey, but look, she's got an undeniable point.
But look at all of the different companies that we have here, right? All these companies, they work month to month. If they close up for 1 month, they're in trouble, and all of a sudden they have to get a bailout from the government. How is that even possible? Why don't they have any money in their coffers? It seems that the only companies that actually have a supply of money that's sitting there for a rainy day or for whatever to invest in R&D or whatever they're going to do with it are electronics companies, big pharma. So not electronics companies. What I mean is tech companies,
deep tech,
like your Apple, your Google, services. They have like a ridiculous amount of money just sitting there. A big pharma, and companies like Amazon, which there's only one of them, which is Amazon. But these, I mean, it's just very, very strange that everyone, all of these companies. Other than those, they're month to month. They have nothing sitting in the bank. They're like the rest of America, who they work and pay their bills on a month to month basis. It's really crazy. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's so many different things to unpack, Jonathan. Always good with your words. Yeah, I mean, this is something that again, the current administration, the Trump administration, I like the idea of like kind of taking some things back from China, because it's true. I mean, there's a lot of things we didn't learn during when the big Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was a main, and somebody correct me here, it was a medical supply that they solely produced, and nobody can get it for a period of time. I'm trying to recall what it is. I may have to look it up here momentarily online. But I thought it was so interesting that that happened, and we still can learn from it. And hopefully, like, this will be a big enough hit that we start to say, wait a minute, like, while we are a global economy and some of these things matter, and outsourcing necessarily isn't a bad thing, there's some things where we should keep internal, right? Or we should have some sort of backup contingency plan, as it were, to make sure that we have things covered. And look, profits can't be the end all be all. There's nothing wrong with, saying, hey, we're going to support jobs here in the United States. We're going to pay them a bit better, and we're going to take a little bit off of, the top of the profits, but everybody lives happily. And we've kind of lost that, where we keep trying to trim the fat there in the center and always cut out whether it's the middleman or the middle class. And it's really starting to rear its ugly head during these times of crisis here, because you're going to see a lot of companies like Amazon that hopefully they continue to hire and they still do well in this department, but you'll see some people where the profits are still in or they break even, but they'll still lay people off because of the people have to get that, their packages and their money, and they're not hitting the expectations. And I think at one point we just got to pause for a second to say, wait a minute, where does this make sense? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, Thai fan, hold on, I got to take a little laugh here. We could all use a laugh. Thai fan, are strippers 1099 employees asking for a friend? Oh my gosh. Oh God.
Wait a second, let me ask my friend's mom.
Oh! So good, so good. Oh my goodness. It was IV bags from Puerto Rico. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. It's crazy to me. It's like, we got to start learning these lessons. We have to take this seriously. Like, I would hope that, we already gone through it. It's already happened. We can't change the past. Hindsight's 2020 or 4K. I get it. But in this particular case, learn from it, have an action plan moving forward, and this is the big problem to me anyways, personally, is I just don't trust this administration or future administrations to really get this right. That's my concern, right? Like, I hear so many people, well, Terrence, you got to solve for today, $2 trillion of relief, which again, I'm not necessarily against, but I keep hearing the thing, oh, you got to solve for today. But I'm like, okay, like, I understand it, but you have to have some thought into how this is going to bite that ass on the back end here. You can't just keep thinking about solving for today, because at some point, then tomorrow is not going to be a guarantee. And we're getting to that point. I just think we're really get down pretty far down that rabbit hole of always today and never tomorrow. Good thoughts?
You know what? Change the subject. Tiger King. Have you seen it?
So Tiger King. We'll change the subject. Tiger King. Oh my God! So Victoria is on it. Like, I think she's already finished it. She freaking loves Tiger King, right? And I don't want to be that person let me just get this out. Okay, I just don't want to be that person to not watch it just to not watch it, right? Like, I hear it is a lot of people saying it's brilliant. It's just well done in general. So I am going to take some time to go ahead and watch it. I hear it's an interesting shit show / it's just interesting. So I'm going to take some time with all this downtime at home. I'm going to watch it.
I wouldn't say it's amazing. I wouldn't use any kind of descriptive terms for that. But it's very, put it this way, you'll be like, yeah, it's just wow. It's like, wow, really? And apparently it took them like 3 or 4 years to film it all. But some of the situations are like so freaking unlikely and so completely ridiculous. And the way it's been edited is like so genius, because it really is. It's absolute genius. But there are hard facts in there. Yeah, she killed her husband. Okay, but so there's some hard facts in there. But at the same time, like, you can see that there's been so many different elements that have been filmed, across this 3-year period or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the way they've edited it, they've created this story, and you just have absolutely no idea what's true or what's not. But if somebody told you, oh yeah, this is all fact, you'll be like, oh okay, wow, really, wow. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of America thinks it's all like completely factual, but damn, it's a roller coaster of just ridiculousness. This guy, he ran for governor of wherever the hell it was, Oklahoma, I think. And which is hilarious in itself. There's this whole thing about this other chick who she killed her husband, or her husband disappeared, and the Tiger King guy is obsessed about trying to figure out who killed the husband, and it's like this. It's a continual part of the story, but no, it is no. Tiger King is essential. It is essential.
You throwing to my friend TJ some shade.
I just wonder, had this whole pandemic thing not happened, would Tiger King have been like the enigma that it's become?
I don't think quite to this scale,
the virus.
Right? Like, I think it would have caught on just because it is, to somebody's point down here, I think it was canon. Like, it is a train wreck. Apparently, you can't stop watching. So I think it certainly would have caught on, would have made a splash. But I think it's been even more just on fire because, again, a lot of people are staying at home, right? So it's just giving you that entertainment there. And I just think it's so interesting, right? Like, I saw bits and pieces of it. I was just watching. I'm like, Victoria, what? Who are these people? Who are these people? Like, just going in between, like the living room and the kitchen and up in the office. I'm like, what is happening here? And then after I heard that she watched it, and so many people just kept going on and on and on. I'm like, okay, it must be captivating to some degree here. And then somebody I like to listen to, a reporter, Kara Swisher, she even said the thing was brilliant. I'm like, okay, look, she's pretty hardcore and she likes to throw shade, and if she says it's brilliant, that's pretty interesting to me. So I am going to take some time here. TJ, you're my boy. I'm going to see if it's any good. I'll probably be like you where I can't finish it, but at the same time, I just find it so entertaining because, like, I guess, like, to put myself out there, like, if I could watch seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I can probably watch Tiger King. Yeah.
So I can't watch that crap.
Yeah, I could even watch that. Yeah, I find them entertaining. I can't help it. So maybe this will stand out to me. So we shall see.
Some of the cut scenes with this show are just freaking hilarious. Because they'll set stuff to like music or whatever, and there's this one part where it's Eye of the Tiger. And this guy, he's on a jet ski or something, and it just like out of nowhere, that makes absolutely no sense. But it's just, you're literally rolling around laughing because it's just so brilliant. It's just so hilarious. But you got to try and get through it. The first episode is a little bit hard going, but after that, it starts to become interesting. And just got to have a lot of beers and snacks and stuff. And you'll waste 7 hours of your life and you'll never get it back. And but you'll be like the rest of us, right? You'll be a lemming. Like the rest of us. And
first, to Abigail and Ty fan, first off, try watching some of the stuff on the plane. That's when you feel it's embarrassing. Like, there's certain things I'm like, I don't want to watch on the plane because I don't want anybody to catch me watching it. But simultaneously, it's just interesting. It's a different form of entertainment. And one thing that I like, and this is actually one of the other reasons why personally shows like that or Keeping Up with the Kardashians is interesting to me, is I think editing is a really cool skill. Like, video editing is something I just personally on a side take interest in. I think editors don't get credit for telling a story because you can totally tell a story this way. And so, like, to give you like a little bit of insight, like a lot of people's reactions and things that happen, they're not like consecutive timelines. A lot of stuff is just shot, and they will rip things from other different timelines and piece it together and, in a sense, tell the story they want to tell. And it's an art, it's a craft. And so I think it's just so interesting how people can say, you know what, I'm going to take something that may come through like very mundane, like very basic, and I can make this exciting. And so I think editors do a really good job here. Beer made is so funny. Oh, man. That's a solution, alcohol.
Beer and vitamin C. Oh, Ozark. So season 3 of Ozark is on, and I completely forgot what happened at the end of season 2. I remember that I like completely binged 2 seasons, and it was really good. And I started to watch the first episode of season 3, and I didn't understand what was going on, so I need to kind of backtrack because have you watched that show?
No, so it is in my queue. I do want to watch it. I hear nothing but phenomenal things about it. As a matter of fact, between that and Tiger King, I'll start an episode tonight. How about that? On both of those, I'm going to do one of each. So the next time we talk tomorrow, we're going to revisit this topic.
All right then. Keep Up with the Kardashians. Ugh.
You blame someone.
Yeah, did you really
No,
watch that? That's
no, I
terrible.
really did. You know what? So here's my thing. You know, people throw so much shade at those girls, but look, the mom is a marketing ninja. I don't care what you say. Like the fact that people can get major corporations that pay them money to do some of the things they do is incredible. Not only that, but when, let's see, who is it? Kylie Jenner can get on, make a makeup line, and that thing crashes websites and outsells so many different things is phenomenal to me. And so I look at the human behavior of it, how they tell the stories of it, and look, that family, say what you will, but they've been through some shit, and to go through it publicly and some of the things that they dealt with, I just think is really interesting. And like my favorite personally is Chloe. Yes, see, I do know quite a bit of it. She's my favorite because despite like Lamar Odom, some of the things he's done, some of the things they've been through, it being publicly aired, you know what? They stick together. They like through hell and high water, and they bring it together. And I just find it to be interesting people. So I get some of the shade behind it. I get the puke emojis. I understand, but and look, everybody can turn around and say the
Nasty.
sex hate, but
So
you know
gross.
what? Paris Hilton tried it. Where's she at now? Like, you know, you have Pamela Anderson lead, like all these. Look, a lot of people have tried different avenues and they never stayed relevant, and these girls know how to stay. So, look, I think from a marketing standpoint, there's something to learn from it. I can guarantee you any marketing lesson that's going to happen, and I'm curious, like, if there's anybody currently, like, in college that want to take some marketing class, I'd almost want to make the bet. At some point, they'll come up with just being marketing geniuses, staying relevant, utilizing social media. They were amongst the first to do it, which is interesting to me being in the tech industry, like how you stay relevant, hot from platform to platform, make or break it. Influencers, absolutely, 100%. And I would argue and say, you know what, tell me who does it better. From an influencer standpoint, who does it better? They're just interesting to me. So I'll own it. I'll take that heat. I understand that shade. I get it.
Whatever, dude. Honestly, the Kardashians. Whenever my kid has that shit on, I insist turning it off because I'm not paying like the electricity bill or a cable bill to watch that shit. Fuck. Oh, God. But I'll watch. But I'll do the same for. I'll watch Tiger King. Right? Awful. They're awful people. Americans. Right?
Well, you know, hey, we do have some of our vices, that's for sure. I can't even deny it. I just can't deny it. But, well, with that, we have approached the hour marker. We're actually at, 1 hour, 1 minute, and 39 seconds.
Really?
We have
We've
been
been on
going that
for an
long.
hour?
We've been going on that long.
Damn.
Yes, we have. So,
All right, well.
Jonathan, if you're interested, I would love to talk to you tomorrow. I bet there's some interesting different topics. We could certainly take it. And, you know, I love always letting the chat just kind of dictate where it goes. I like things to be thrown off in different directions. So, you know, if you got time tomorrow, man, we should do it one more time. But try to cap it an hour.
Totally. Let's do it.
All right, look, y'all, Jonathan Wood's down. Jonathan's down. All right, Jonathan, it was a pleasure talking to you. Hang tight because I'm going to hit finish on this one, but I'll wrap something up with you. All right, everyone.
You too, mate. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.